Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So a couple weeks ago, I made a video talking about how Marvel has kind of declined following the Infinity Saga and Avengers Endgame. But today I thought I wanted to do something a little bit more positive, a little bit more chill, and just go back to the Infinity Saga, look back in the good times, and just do a little tier list, basically ranking my favorites and least favorites from the Infinity Saga. That's really all there is to this video. Make sure you leave a like, and let's get into it. All right, so of course we're going to start with the very first Marvel movie, and that is obviously Iron Man. Iron Man's just like a super solid superhero movie. I think it's aged pretty well, actually. Obviously, the casting of Robert Downey Jr. is one of the best superhero castings ever. I mean, he literally is Tony Stark. I don't think if they ever try to reboot it or cast someone else as Iron Man, it's just not going to work because he set the standard and, became that character. And really, he carries the whole movie on his back. There's some stuff that's like kind of boring and like kind of its time. Mostly like the technology and just a pretty generic bad guy. Jeff Bridges isn't really doing much, even though he's a great actor in this. That he really doesn't have a lot to do, and the whole ending is just a giant mech fight. It's basically like watching Transformers, two giant robots fight each other, which isn't very interesting. But I think the growth of Tony Stark and RDJ's performance is enough to make this a very solid, great entry. And then next we have The Incredible Hulk. The movie everyone forgets is actually in the MCU, and there's a reason why this movie isn't very memorable. I think Ed Norton is a decent Bruce Banner. I don't really think they did a great job of balancing Hulk and Bruce. I feel like it's a lot of Bruce, and we don't really get enough Hulk. I don't really like the design of Hulk either. He's like kind of zombie-ish almost. He's like really like veiny and skinny, and his not skinny, but his skin is like pressed up against him, and it's like, I don't know, something about him makes him look like undead or something. And yeah, I mean, all the side characters are boring, and there's some good actors in this too. Liv Tyler and Tim Roth, William Hurt, they're good actors. They just have, again, nothing to do in this movie. All the action pieces aren't very interesting. This is the last time we kind of saw a cool like solo Hulk movie, which we need to get again. So I'll get some points for that, but overall it's pretty average. It's not terrible, like it's watchable, but you would never watch it again. It's like easily the most skippable movie in the entire franchise. Nothing ever really comes back to it until now, Captain America, Brave New World, but just slightly above bad. It's just so underwhelming that it hurts. And Iron Man 2 is not really that much better. Robert Downey Jr. is good again, and I think Don Cheadle is much better casting for Rhodey than Terrence Howard. I think him and Robert Downey have better chemistry. But yeah, Tony's kind of just an asshole in this movie, and it's all just kind of setting up Avengers. It doesn't really feel like his own movie because you throw Black Widow in there, and Nick Fury's a much bigger role. The villain is pretty bad. Whiplash is like the most underwhelming villain. And again, the whole ending is just a giant robot fight. Not very interesting. Justin Hammer's pretty good. Sam Rockwell is always good in anything he's in. He's kind of the most entertaining part about this movie, but he's also like not even really a villain. He's like the side villain to Whiplash. That scene on the racetrack in Monaco, that's pretty cool. That's a good action sequence, and the suit up with the suitcase, Iron Man suit, that's pretty cool. But yeah, also nothing really memorable about this movie besides Justin Hammer and the introduction of Black Widow, I guess. But that's about it. I mean, you could honestly skip this one as well, and you wouldn't miss anything in future movies. Like, do you remember Iron Man creating an element in this movie? That's a thing that happens in this movie. Iron Man creates a new element, and that's something that's never brought up again. So that just goes to show how irrelevant this movie became. So with that, I'm going to have to put Iron Man 2 in below average next to the Hulk. So MCU is not off to a great start, in my opinion. But then we get the original Thor. And I actually think this movie is kind of underrated. I think Chris Hemsworth is another great casting choice. I think he really embodies the role of Thor. I think he has good chemistry with all of the leads on, or not the leads, the side characters on Earth. I like the banter between him and Stellan Skarsgård more than him and Natalie Portman. And Kat Dennings is pretty good in this. I think she's annoying in a lot of things, but in this she's okay. The fish out of water storyline, I think, just works with Thor. He's a likable character, and you want to see him succeed. Loki's a great villain with a great tragic backstory. Obviously, Tom Hiddleston kept coming back. He's like one of the only villains that returns, and that's just a statement of how good and entertaining Loki is. I like the relationship between him and Thor and with Odin. I think the whole Shakespearean thing works very well with these characters. I kind of wish they would go back to this side in the next Thor movie. And obviously it's still a little bit of its time. Some of it's kind of slow. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent superhero movie. I think the villain's good and the hero's good. And you're rooting for all the right people. And there's some pretty decent action sequences. I think you've got a decent superhero movie. So Thor's going to go squarely in good. Then after Thor, we have Captain America, the First Avenger. Here it is. Captain America, the First Avenger. Again, I think highly underrated. I love the World War II setting. It's a lot like The Rocketeer, which is another Joe Johnston movie, which was the perfect choice to go with that kind of thing for Captain America. It absolutely works. Chris Evans, again, they were really nailing these castings in the beginning. He is great as like starting out as the earnest Captain America, the Boy Scout, and it's fun to see his journey as he goes along. Haley Atwell is great in this. I like Tommy Lee Jones as the little side general. Even Stanley Tucci in his small role is very good. And the Red Skull is a pretty good villain. He's not like one of the best Marvel villains, I don't think, but I think Hugo Weaving does a pretty good job of making him entertaining as well as unlikable. He's a Nazi, so of course it's easy to make him unlikable, but he's still fun to root against, and the dynamic between him and Cap is kind of fun. Both of them like opposite sides of the coin with the super serum. And yeah, like I said, this is just a really good, fun adventure movie. It's a good way to describe it. It's a lot like The Rocketeer. If you've seen The Rocketeer, it's a good World War II, good old boys beating up Nazis, and that's always fun. So I'm going to put Captain America, the First Avenger, in great. Then we get the first Avengers film. It's so much fun seeing all these characters finally come together and, bounce off of each other. I think all the chemistry works very well, especially Robert Downey and Chris Evans. They're good foils for each other. Loki is even more entertaining in this than I think in the original Thor. He feels a lot more threatening, while also you can tell there's like a tragic side to him that he doesn't really want to be doing this. I think all the action scenes are very well done. The initial fight with Loki, the scene where the helicarrier gets attacked and Hulk is fighting Thor. Also, Mark Ruffalo introduction as Hulk. He's great. He is a fantastic Hulk. I think the best one we've had so far. He gets less to do as movies go on, but I think this is maybe his best performance as Bruce Banner / the Hulk. He really adds a lot to the movie, I think. Only criticism would be like Hawkeye doesn't really get too much to do because he's under mind control for the whole time. But this is just like your classic fun blockbuster that I think the rest of these were trying to live up to. And some of them succeed. But yeah, just the mashing of these personalities and seeing them get to do fun stuff, beating up bad guys together, that's what these movies are really all about. They're just good popcorn flicks. And this is like, I think the standard. This was the standard going forward for Marvel movies. All right, after that we have Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is, I think, better than Iron Man 2, but not quite as good as Iron Man 1. It's fun to see one of these set during the holidays. You can definitely tell it's like a Shane Black film. If you've seen any of his other movies, they're always set at Christmas, and it has his style of humor. I love actually Tony's whole arc of trying to overcome his PTSD from the events of the Avengers. That's a good way of tying in the movies and actually telling a story across different films. So I love that he's actually having to deal with that, and it's pushing away Pepper. It's causing his life to spiral. But again, a lot of people's problems with the early Marvel movies were the villains, and the villains are pretty bad in this. There's the fake Mandarin, which is it's kind of smart that they did like a pivot. The original Mandarin in the comics is obviously like stereotypical Chinese bad guy, kind of like the bad guy from Flash Gordon. Here he's more representing the Middle East because that's what was going on at the time. He's very Al Qaeda like, but then it kind of turns into a joke, and there's a fake Mandarin and a real Mandarin, which is Guy Pearce, who like, why do we care? He's like nothing in this movie. This is another one that you don't really remember anything about as soon as you're done watching it. Tony gives up being Iron Man, but then he's Iron Man again in the very next movie, so it really means nothing. His PTSD and paranoia come back, but a lot of this is just like filler. I guess it was kind of, if RDJ wanted to be out, then this was a send-off. But with him coming back, it kind of renders a lot of this movie pointless. But overall, it's enjoyable to watch. It's not one I would rewatch all the time unless I'm doing a marathon. So I'm going to give it good. Like I said, better than Iron Man 2, not as good as the original Iron Man. After that, we have Thor, The Dark World. I specifically remember going to see this for my birthday, and I thought it was good at the time, but I was also like 10. So rewatching it back, this movie is fucking dog shit. It is absolutely maybe the worst Marvel movie, or MCU movie, I should say. It is so boring. It looks boring. The story's boring. No one seems like they're giving any effort in their performances besides maybe Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, it's all pretty bad. It's gray. I mean, again, the villain, Malekith, is probably the worst villain in the MCU. He's so dull, and we don't really get... I mean, the plot is so generic. He wants to destroy the realms and have ultimate power. And the Dark Elves' designs are so lame, especially when you compare them to how they looked in the comics. Yeah, I mean, they try to make an emotional moment with the death of Thor's mother, she had maybe 5 minutes of screen time between the two movies. So no, we don't care that she dies, and they have this big, long, drawn-out funeral where it's like, we don't care, move the story along. And yeah, it's just boring to look at, boring to watch. It moves at a snail's pace. No one looks like they're having any fun. This really kind of put a bad rep on Thor for a little bit. He was kind of seen as the boring guy, where the last movie was able to balance the Shakespearean stuff with like a modern sense. This just went all like high fantasy. You can tell they're trying to be like Lord of the Rings almost, but it just fails completely, and it's just pretty unwatchable. Then we have Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This kind of reinvented Captain America almost, brought him into the modern age for sure. It's probably Chris Evans' best performance as Captain America. Seeing him have to grapple with a new world, and he doesn't know who's to trust. The world has become a lot more complicated since he was last fighting. He has a great dynamic with both Black Widow and Nick Fury. The Bucky storyline is they really do a good job of reintroducing Bucky and building up the relationship between him and Steve. You know that Bucky's the Winter Soldier, but it's still pretty tense. Probably the best action scenes in the Infinity Saga. Yeah, this is one of the first movies that I feel like try to branch outside the typical superhero genre. This one tries to be like a political thriller, which everyone calls it all the time. And it's not like, it's not like a Jack Ryan movie or something like that. But I think it does a pretty good job of getting close with these characters. So yeah, I'm gonna put Captain America: The Winter Soldier in fantastic. And then we have the original Guardians of the Galaxy, another great movie. You know, I think it's a testament to the talent of James Gunn. He was able to bring these nobody characters that probably would have gotten you laughed at if you tried to pitch a movie about them before this, and he made them a household name. I think Marvel's best franchise, like sub franchise. Consistently great movies. In this one, all of them play their roles perfectly. I love stories of like found family, so that's always a plus for me. I think all the Guardians, like I said, play their roles perfectly. They perfectly interact with each other. It's definitely a hilarious movie, of course, and it has, you know, James Gunn is, I think, a very stylistic director, and you can tell this is a James Gunn movie, and I like that a lot. He puts his own stamp on this. It doesn't feel like just another Marvel movie. This is a James Gunn film, and it is going in fantastic. Next up, Avengers: Age of Ultron. So I also feel like this is one that gets hated on a lot. A lot of people would rate it pretty low. I'm actually going to put it in great, and let me tell you why. I love that the Avengers have kind of like settled into each other and have more ways to bounce off of each other. They're more familiar, and there's like friendships and tension developed, and it's fun to see that. I like Ultron a lot. I agree he could have been better, but I think he's pretty intimidating in this while also being funny, and it makes sense since he's like a creation of Stark. He's like a dark reflection of Tony, so it makes sense that he would have like his own sense of humor. I think Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are both cool in this. I wish Quicksilver could have stuck around a lot. I really like Aaron Taylor Johnson's portrayal of Quicksilver. I honestly like it better than the Evans Peters version in the Fox films. And yeah, I think it's just a solid, fun movie. I think it does a good job of advancing all the characters all of the Avengers character arcs. I think it does a great job of playing up on Tony's PTSD and paranoia that's been explored in the past couple movies with him. I think Ultron is, like I said, a good villain. I agree it could have been better. Ultron should have been a little bit more serious. It's maybe a little long. But overall, I enjoy Age of Ultron a lot. And we have Ant-Man. Ant-Man is, for lack of a better term, a small movie. It's very intimate. That kind of stays away from end of the world stuff, which I like. It does a lot of fun, creative stuff with the size changing, powers. Paul Rudd is a great lead, and the supporting cast is pretty great too. I like the three, I think the Weasels as they're known. I like Hank Pym. I like Evangeline Lilly's pretty good in this. I think her and Paul Rudd have a good dynamic. The suit looks pretty cool. The Ant-Man original suit, I think, is one of the better suits in the MCU, and I'm mad that they changed it to like nanotech in the future ones. But yeah, this is just another solid blockbuster. Nothing too crazy, but it's a fun time at the movies. I like that it's mostly a comedy. Critiques: the villain's pretty bad. It's just another thing where it's two people with the same powers going up against each other, and Yellow Jacket isn't very entertaining at all. He's pretty bland as a villain, kind of just like a Lex Luthor, evil corporate type, but without any charisma. But yeah, like I said, Ant-Man's a pretty solid film, so I'm going to put it in great. All right, now we've come to Phase 3, and the first film of Phase 3 was Captain America Civil War, or Avengers 2.5, basically. I think this one actually hasn't held up too well. I liked it a lot when I first saw it. You can see both sides of the discussion, but I think it's pretty obvious that Cap is in the right. It's proven in later movies, but also in past movies, they're trying to justify making the Avengers work for the government by saying they tore apart New York when the government tried to nuke Manhattan, and the Avengers stopped that. Like, I don't know. I get that superheroes should be regulated, but also, like, what are you going to do when aliens are invading and you have no response to that? But I get it. You need drama for the conflict, and Tony's feels guilty about Ultron and everything else. So I get why he would be on that side. The airport fight scene is fun. Tom Holland as Spider-Man is great in this. The debut of Black Panther is really great in this. I think this is the best he is in all of the movies, is his introduction in this movie. But yeah, I think it kind of moves a lot slower than I remember. I don't know, something about it just didn't click with me the last time I watched it. It's still decent. I'm gonna put it in good. But I don't know. It feels kind of drawn out to me, and I would have liked more of a focus on Cap as an individual character rather than his relationship with the other Avengers. Like, I feel like this could have just been an Avengers movie, and you could have added more into it. But it's a Captain America movie, but it's also kind of an Iron Man movie, but it's also introducing Spider-Man and Black Panther, and it's just doing a little bit too much. After that was Doctor Strange. This is another one that doesn't really hold up, I don't think. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a little bit too close to Tony Stark in this. He's just doing the whippy, smartass kind of thing. I don't really feel like the magic is explained very well. Like, what are the limits to Doctor Strange's powers and stuff like that? They don't. In other movies, they kind of do a lot more creativity with it. But in this one, he's kind of just like opening portals, and they're whipping with the like sling rings. They're just creating like energy blasts. And that's not very interesting. You could do a lot more. The visuals are pretty cool at times, or really in that one sequence when he is tripping in Kamar-Taj. But yeah, I don't really think Tilda Swinton's working here as the Ancient One. I feel like they could have gotten someone else. And again, I think it's Caecilius. Pretty boring, bland villain. Just, again, two people with the same powers doing stuff to each other. The ending is pretty cool with him trapping Dormammu in the time loop. Actually, I'm going to move it up to good just because of that. I realize I'm saying a lot more positive about it than negative. But I still wouldn't put it in great just because I feel like it doesn't live up to the potential it could have. Then we had Guardians Volume 2. This is pretty high up there as my favorite MCU movie. I'd probably put it maybe 2 or 3. But yeah, I think it does everything the first one does and more. The characters' relationships are dug into deeper, especially Gamora and Nebula. Nebula is given a lot more shine, as is Yondu. We're able to explore the relationship between him and Quill. I really like Kurt Russell as Ego. I think he is an underrated villain. Everything they added was great. It's funnier than the first one. It is more emotional. The soundtrack's better, in my opinion. The visuals are better. It's just everything the first one did to another level, and the first one was already like one of the best Marvel movies. Then Spider-Man Homecoming, the reboot of Spider-Man, the third Spider-Man in like, I think it was like 10 years or something. But I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and I like this kind of John Hughes high school story with smaller stakes. I don't really love him being so connected with Iron Man in this universe. I wish they kind of would have went more traditional. But I guess they were trying something new. We already seen that twice. But still, I kind of like his mentor being Uncle Ben rather than Tony Stark. But they have a nice dynamic, and Tom Holland's great as Spider-Man. Michael Keaton is great as the Vulture. And yeah, I just like the high school small stakes aspect of this the most. So I'm going to go ahead and put Homecoming in the great tier. Thor Ragnarok, which basically reinvented Thor. He's no longer the super serious Shakespearean kind of guy. This is like an 80s action comedy movie. And I think for the most part it works. I don't think it's held up as well Taika Waititi's brand of comedy can be very controversial, I guess. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And for me, most of the time it works here. I think a lot of the stuff is funny. I like the dynamic between Hulk and Thor, and the journey that Hulk has kind of gone at this point, where there's definitely become a separation between the Banner identity and the Hulk identity. So that's interesting that they explored that. I wish they would have gotten more deep into it though. But I understand that this is a Thor movie, not a Hulk movie. But I don't really like Hela as a villain. She's just kind of lame to me. I don't know. It's another thing of just super monotone, blah, nothing really crazy or engaging about her. And like her whole thing is just like conquest. It's kind of played out. But also I do love how the relationship between Thor and Loki progresses in this. That's good stuff. I think I would put Ragnarok in the good category. Every time I watch it, I kind of like it a little bit less, but I think I'll never dislike it. It'll always be good, but I think it's fallen off for me it's kind of fallen off for me in subsequent viewings. Then we come to Black Panther. Obviously a culturally and socially important movie, but I feel like Black Panther, the character, is like the least engaging person in his movie. He's just kind of like a blank slate good guy. We don't really dig into who he is as a person. A lot of that is spent on building up Killmonger, and he's great. Michael B. Jordan is great. Killmonger is one of the best villains, but you do that at the sacrifice of just making your protagonist kind of boring. And obviously, everyone knows about the pretty bad looking CG. I don't think any of the action scenes are really that cool. I think Andy Serkis is wasted in this. But I really like the music, and I like the world of Wakanda. I think they did a good job world building. So I'm gonna put this in good. I think it could have been a lot better though. Infinity War. Again, this I think is probably my favorite Marvel movie. I think just the way it's able to balance so many different characters, tie up all these storylines. It was 10 years building this and they nailed it. That was really an achievement. And to make Thanos basically the main character, he is fantastic in this. Josh Brolin did an amazing job as Thanos. And I don't know, the stakes are so high and you really feel the weight of the story they're telling. And one of the most shocking endings, I think, in the past decade, that I remember seeing this opening night, and it was the best theater experience ever. So yeah, I gotta put Infinity War in the fantastic tier. Then you have Captain Marvel. This one is, I think I'm gonna have to put it in garbage. I'm sorry. It's not because I don't care about the political aspects of this. People say, oh, it's bad because it's woke or anything like that. I think it's just a boring movie. Captain Marvel as a character is spending half the time figuring out who she is, but when you're doing that, telling a story of someone discovering who they were in a past life or something and sprinkling in these little flashbacks, we don't really get to connect to the character. So we don't really know who Carol is by the end of the movie. We feel like we haven't really gotten to experience anything with her because she doesn't have an arc. She's just becoming the person she already was. And yeah, there's just really nothing too memorable about it. It feels a lot like a Phase 1 movie that got forgotten. Super bland villain. I don't even know who the main villain is supposed to be. I guess it's supposed to be Jude Law. I guess Samuel L. Jackson's pretty good in it. But yeah, I feel like they did a disservice to the Captain Marvel character and to Brie Larson, who's a great actress, by just delivering in a super bland script. Then Ant-Man and the Wasp. Again, this is kind of just like a downgrade of the previous Ant-Man movie. I don't think they get as creative with the shrinking stuff. I think the jokes are not as funny. I don't really think they need to reintroduce Janet. It's not awful. It's not absolute garbage. I'm going to put it in below average. But yeah, this was just another one that is forgettable for the most part. Like, do you know anyone who says their favorite MCU movie is Ant-Man and the Wasp? This was just like, we need to set up where Ant-Man was during Infinity War. We need to build up the quantum realm for Endgame. And that's all there is to it. It really is nothing else but a filler episode of the MCU. Avengers Endgame with basically the end of the Infinity Saga besides the epilogue of Spider-Man. But yeah, Endgame was good. It is not as good as Infinity War in my opinion. I think it feels a little bit too clean. I don't know how to explain that. Infinity War felt more, not grounded, obviously, but I think the visuals in that were just a lot more real. This one feels kind of fakey. Everything's too polished. Kind of looks like a car commercial in some points. I hate all the nanotechnology stuff. We get so much less of Thanos, who was the best part of the last movie. It's fun seeing them go back through older movies. Like time travel stuff is always fun. But yeah, I don't know. It's good. I mean, I'm gonna put it in good, and that's probably gonna be a little bit controversial. But I feel like Infinity War was so good, and this just couldn't live up to the hype. Obviously, the ending is great. Seeing everybody come back into a big battle, that's fun. But I don't know. I think the time it took to get there just wasn't as entertaining as it could have been, especially for this super big monumental moment. It just didn't stick the landing quite as well, but it ultimately is a satisfying conclusion. And then we have Spider-Man Far From Home, which is like, it's good. It's like the most average movie, I think. I don't like that they kind of got away from the small high school thing, turned to this whole big thing with Mysterio, and Nick Fury, I think, didn't really need to be involved in this. Kind of just like ruins the like I said, the John Hughes-esque fun of the last one. I think you could have just told another small contained story, or just waited until the next movie or the next saga, I guess, to do another Spider-Man movie. I don't think this needed to be rushed out right after Endgame. Yeah, nothing too much to write home about. It's just fine. Perfectly fine. And that was my tier list of the Infinity Saga. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. What did you agree with, disagree with? What's your favorite MCU film? What's your least favorite? I'm making movie content all the time, so if you like what you saw, please subscribe, leave a like. I will see you next time. As always, thank you for watching.